G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee and welcome back to another episode of r/EntitledPeople. Now if you love today's content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and enjoy today's bloody good content. Thank you. Our first post is by user Cyborg Knitter, titled, "A Catty Bridesmaid Meets an Unmovable Force. My Mother." So a conversation with fellow crafters reminded me of this story, so I figured I'd share. Some quick background. My baby brother was born terminally ill, and the long hospital stays and expensive meds kicked in around 6 months old. To cope with the huge medical bills, Mum worked some odd jobs over the years, including making custom wedding and bridesmaids' gowns. My mum had a few die-hard rules. Number 1, she did all of your measurements. I heard the lecture of vanity fibbing only results in a poorly fitting dress, more times than I can count. Number 2, all final fittings must be completed at least 3 weeks before the wedding. That way, if Dewey had an emergency hospital stay, she'd have time to arrange for someone to sit with him while she went home to finish a job. He was nonverbal and needed a constant companion. This particular bride wanted all of her bridesmaids in pastel organza dresses. Organza is a gauzy fabric. The base dresses were white, covered with these colors. Unfortunately, the bride had more bridesmaids than pastel shades the fabric came in, meaning one lucky bridesmaid wore tan. The bride refused to start a fight by assigning colors, so it was first come, first serve. When you came for measurements, you got to pick from the remaining colors. One bridesmaid lived 3 hours away and flat out refused to come to town to be measured. She insisted that telling us she was size 8 was good enough. Bridal sizes are very different and didn't cleanly convert, so that meant nothing. My mum finally reached the compromise that a local seamstress could measure her and send in the measurements. 1 month before this wedding, Dewey was admitted to the ICU to be placed on a ventilator. Mum now had to find coverage enough to get 8 dresses finished off in the next 2 or so weeks. She pulled it off thanks to amazing friends, but it was tight. Dad was busy working overtime to pay the bills and dealing with us other 2 kids. Well, this catty bridesmaid, BB from now on, still refused to have a final fitting more than 2 days before the wedding. She didn't want to waste the trip just because my mum was a horrible seamstress who didn't understand proper sizing. I was cleaning up seed pearls during that lovely conversation. My mum begged a friend to sit with Dewey for an entire day so she could do the fitting and adjustments all at once. BB was 2 hours late. When she arrived, she saw the hideous tan dress and began literally screaming about how it wasn't fair and my mum must have picked that color. She demanded another bridesmaid return their dress and both dresses get swapped colors. It would have been 20+ hours of work, so Mum laughed and told her that was a big no. The bride arrived and told her friend that color was the only option left and she was sorry, but it was that or drop out of the wedding and pay for the dress anyways. BB finally agreed to put it on. Yeah, she lied about her size. When the zipper didn't go all the way up, Mum whipped out the measuring tape, only to discover this tramp had shaved 2 inches off every measurement except height. Her defense was that she wasn't going to let a jealous seamstress lie about her, so she fixed the numbers before passing them on. By this point, my mum was all but breathing fire. Her son's life hung in the balance, and this lunatic was making her life hell. My mum demanded double for the dress because she was going to have to add strips to the base white dress to make it big enough, then make a whole new overdress from organza. It was doubling the time and adding substantially to fabric costs. BB fought over it, and my mum finally told her, "Fine. Pay me the agreed-upon amount and take your dress as is." Now the bride herself was bullying BB into just paying up. She finally agreed to it, and my mum told the bride to get BB out of her house. They could come back in 5 hours to get the dress. Thankfully, the redone dress was a perfect fit. BB paid the remaining balance and left after that. The day my brother died, My mum refused to ever make another wedding dress. She's only made one in the 21 years since as a favour to the friend who spent that ill-fated day with Dewey in the ICU while Mum fought with BB. Our next post is by user Pikachu's Devil Spawn, titled, Entitled Woman Annoyed at Young Girl Sitting Down. Ah, to be a child in London. Our cast are M, my mum, Ew, entitled woman, and me is 10-year-old me. So I have been swimming since the age of about 4 and started competing in galas with my school at age 7. My primary school was very good at swimming and would get to the ISEB swimming finals in the London Aquatic Centre, plus the London League finals every year. This was my first ISEB finals, and I was extremely nervous. I ended up using up all of my energy in my sprints, not leaving much to get back home on. I also was taught from a young age to give up my seat when someone really needed it. We had to walk for half an hour from the centre to the underground to get home, which meant by the time I had gotten to the tube, I was very tired. I decided to sit down due to being rather drained. I was sitting next to my mother, who was unfortunately on the other side of a glass barrier. I thought I would get to rest and play on my phone for a bit. Boy, was I wrong. At the next stop, Entitled Woman comes on the train. She sees that there are no empty seats and looks for a person she can annoy into moving. She spots me, the child sitting in a seat, and decides to stand close enough so me and Mum can hear her backhand comments. She looks over her shoulder and tuts to her partner. Why does the child have to sit in a priority seat? She can stand up perfectly fine. This woman was 50 to 60, but looked healthy and fit, very much able to stand. I was unfazed by this comment, but my mother took notice and got slightly pissed off, knowing how drained I was. She realized I wasn't going to move, and then things got awkward. She decided to move to stand directly in front of me, making me very uncomfortable. And playing a game on their phone? People these days. Mum is now annoyed, but is stubborn. She can see that I'm uncomfortable, and so takes off her backpack in a big way, then asking me to hold it for a second. She passes me the backpack around the glass barrier, nudging Entitled Woman back a bit. She then talks to me about the gala, and we talk about how I had done well, but was really tired and wanted to go to sleep straight after dinner. This told Entitled Woman why I wasn't giving up my seat. She then played a game with me. Spot the open seat. This was a game I quite liked to play as a small child with not much to do. That alerted Entitled Woman to an open seat a little further down the carriage. Entitled Woman quietly went to the seat with her partner, muttering under her breath, "Children these days." Our next post is by user The Idiot Girlfriend, titled, Dad thinks he's entitled to tell you when to stop eating. So my dad has severe control issues around food. He must always eat more or have a bigger portion than everyone else. Sometimes he takes smaller portions to be self-righteous, but then goes and eats a second meal/course that no one else is allowed to eat. He also tried to say when you should stop eating, which always has to be before him, even if he's already eaten and you haven't. There is nothing worse than when you've skipped lunch and you've found out that Dad had a big afternoon snack, because that means dinner is going to suck ass. His controlling behavior has given me food issues where I hoard food and binge because I'm scared he's going to take my food away. I'm also overweight/fat. I've recently moved out, and one of the big perks is I have a healthier relationship with food. I binge less and eat less in general, but I'm mostly not consumed by thoughts of food 24/7 like I used to be. This Christmas was actually the first Christmas I didn't binge chocolates before and after dinner. I ate reasonable amounts, but it's still Christmas. Everyone except Dad was telling me how they think I've lost weight. Yay! I left feeling good about myself. Enter my dad. He called at my home today to fix my sink. As he was leaving, he sat me down and went through all the food that I ate at Christmas and told me how much less of each item I should have ate. I tell him to stop, as him controlling my food will trigger me for having a binging episode. He continues. I explain again. He tells me binging is only hurting me. I tell him I know, but he needs to stop. I also mention how effing creepy it is for him to watch me eat and count what I eat during Christmas. He tells me that's his right as my father, and anytime we have meals together, he's going to be watching and counting. Other things he has done are 1. Looked through my trash to see what I'm eating in my own home, that he does not live in. 2. Question what I've eaten every day. And 3. Offered to order my groceries online for me so I don't have to go to shops during the pandemic. He then edited my shopping list to meet his standards. However, I am slowly gaining more control over food in my life, and I feel so free. Edit. Thanks, guys. I was just ranting, but don't worry. I know this behavior is not normal and could be in the abuse column. I'm setting boundaries and going low contact, but I'm not ready to go no contact. Edit 2. I'm so unbelievably overwhelmed and thankful for all your comments, awards, and good wishes. I just posted this as, "Isn't he so ridiculous?" post. While I know this behavior is abusive, he's still a good dad in other ways and he's pretty screwed up from his own childhood. I'm aware that at some point I may have to go no contact, and that will be an extremely painful process. I'm currently following the timeline of a friend in a similar situation. Going low contact first is what I need to do. I understand why you guys are downvoting some of my comments about how he's my dad and I don't want to go no contact, but please understand that I'm just not ready yet. I'm not going to go into all the reasons, but a big one is my mum. Yes, she should have done a better job of protecting me, but she's a victim here too, and she's stuck. She won't leave him because she's made vows before God. Mum has a major heart operation coming up, and I don't want to add stress to her to risk her not coming through it. After the operation, it will be a different story. I also do genuinely love my dad. Definitely have some Stockholm syndrome. Another reason is that Dad has taken so much from me and damaged me in ways that I may not fully be aware of. If I go no contact, I'm going to lose so many other things that are so important to me. I'm not going to give him that power. I'm not going to let him play the victim of an ungrateful child. When Dad does or says these things now, it has no effect on me, because I'm out and I know it's ridiculous. I'm no longer being brainwashed into thinking it's normal. He genuinely has no power here anymore. By going no contact, I'll be giving him some power. But I'm also so scared of being alone. I'm religious, and in the past I've definitely had times where making a big move felt wrong, and times where I've felt that nudge telling me to jump ship. Following that nudge has never led me wrong. I'm feeling that nudge about low contact in therapy. Yay, therapy again. I'm pretty sure I have an eating disorder. Fun. I'm not feeling that nudge about no contact yet, but I feel that it's coming. And our next post is by user Naruto Nami, titled, Mum, 38, thinks she's entitled to my, 17 female, salary, and spends it all on designer. So my parents have never given me allowance for anything, so without asking them, I got a part-time job after school at a restaurant where I earned $5 an hour. I worked for 2 hours every day after school from 5:45 to 8 p.m. They knew I had gotten a job, so they didn't say much of anything. My mum asked me a few questions and would be curious to learn more, but that was it. After a few months, I had saved around $800, which is a lot for me, and I was planning to continue my savings until my mum asked me how much I had earned and asked me to let her save it in her account as it would be safer. I said okay. Afterwards, I saw her buy a few designers and asked her if she had spent my money, to which she replied, "I have spent thousands on you by growing you up, so what if I spent your money? Just earn it back again." I started bawling my eyes out. Not out of sadness, but pure frustration that my hard work and hard-earned money has now been washed away because of my mum. She feels entitled to my money, and my dad didn't say anything to her about it. She refuses to return it and thinks I'm acting like a brat, and told me if I continued this way, she's going to ground me and take away all my devices. What the hell? I currently have around $80 in Bitcoin, and I'm going to start saving again, but without my entitled mum knowing. However, I'm so extremely upset because I have to start from the beginning again. FYI, my family isn't rich, so $800 is a lot of money to us, and there is no way that she will ever return it to me for anyone, so that's optimistic enough to think that my mum's the kind to save it for me. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everyone except for myself. I can't wait to get out of this house at 18. Using a throwaway account because my friends know my real Reddit account, and I wouldn't want them to see this rant. And our last post is by user Thanos Purple Boy, titled, Karen once followed me at an airport because I was a lost child. So this probably needs context before I start. Both my parents are divorced and live in 2 separate states. I live with my mum and grandparents in Nashville, Tennessee, while over school breaks I visit my dad in Rochester, New York. I've flown alone since I was 5, and when I turned 13, my parents said that it was okay if I travel without an escort on my layovers, as long as I text them when I'm boarding and when I land. Fair enough. This happened when I was 16. Now, I don't look my age, and never have. There's a bad combination in my family. Short genes and a baby face. I was lucky enough to inherit both. To give you a rough image, I'm a 5-foot tall girl who weighs about 125 pounds with a baby face. Easy for people to mistake me as younger than I am. Well, flying was always the worst offense because I was alone. I also have bad anxiety and stutter a lot when I'm nervous, so it only adds to the age confusion more. I was coming back from New York and had a 2-hour layover in Baltimore. I decided to get some food at Chipotle. While I was eating at the food court, minding my own business, and scrolling through my phone, this middle-aged white, blonde woman with her 2 kids walk up to me. We'll just call her Karen. And she says, "Hi, honey, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why do you ask?" "Well, you seem young and you're by yourself." Oh, great, here we go again. This wasn't the first time this happened, so I calmly told her that I was fine, and thanks for the concern. Well, apparently Karen didn't like my answer. Her tone soon changed from a caring, concerned citizen to a demanding bitch. She told me that I wasn't fine because I was a minor by myself, and I needed adult supervision to fly. She was correct about the minor part, but the supervision part was bullshit. I was flying Southwest, who allows anyone 12 and older to travel by themselves, but someone is still supervising you on your flights until you're 15. I did not need adult supervision to be in the airport past security alone, and I told her this. I politely asked her to leave me alone, and I understand the confusion. Karen wasn't having it. She says, "You're lying." And I reply, "How?" "I have kids, and I know the airport policy about minors." "Well, clearly you don't. I've already said that I'm fine. Can you please leave me alone?" "No. Where are your parents?" "Doesn't matter, does it?" "Yes, it does. I need to complain to them." At this point, I was getting annoyed. I didn't want to tell her about the fact that my parents were divorced, but back then I saw it as the only way for her to fully understand the situation and leave me alone. I say, "Ma'am, I'm 16 years old, my mom is in Nashville waiting for me, and my dad is in New York. Neither of them are in this airport, and they both know I'm by myself and are okay with it. I'm allowed to have a layover by myself, and I'm not considered an unaccompanied minor when I'm 16 years old, according to the airline. Now please, leave me alone." "No, you're lying." "How am I lying? I know you're lying because I have children. I know how rebellious they are, and you are definitely not 16 years old. I was getting mad at this point. For one, what right do you have to tell me how old I am? And secondly, your children look 7 and 5 years old. A little too young to be going through a teenage rebellion. I stood up. I put my food in my bag and told her, I think I know how old I am. Where's your proof? I took out my driver's license. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have, but I was desperate for her to go away. With not only my birthday, but the fact that I had one in the first place signified I was 16 or older. I didn't want to show this lady my other information, so I let her see the birthday and nothing more. Karen wasn't going to swallow her pride and walk away. She says, that still doesn't excuse you from walking around the airport by yourself. How do I know that you're not running away from home? I wanted to tell her that even if I was, it was none of her business. I repeated Southwest's policy to her and told her that if she still didn't believe me, she could go on their website and check for herself or ask an employee. I then repeated for her to leave me alone or I'd get security. My bluff didn't seem to affect her. She said I wasn't going anywhere and I had to come with her and find my parents. I simply told her no and began reaching for my backpack. The Karen grabbed my wrist and started pulling me. I yanked my wrist away, grabbed my backpack and started running. At that point, people were watching and her kids seemed distressed, but I didn't care. I made a run for my gate. Now, I'm not very athletic, but I'm definitely faster than this overweight single mom. I eventually made it to my gate and took a seat at one of the chairs. Still feeling uneasy, I told the lady at the gate what happened and that I was still shaken up. She understood and said that if she saw a woman matching the description near the gate, she'd make sure she didn't come near me. And if she did, security would be alerted. Well, turns out my gut was right, and after about an hour, I saw her looking around at the different gates. I told the lady, and she nodded. She instructed me to get behind the desk as the Karen approached. Here is basically the conversation. Excuse me, that child behind you is not allowed to be in the airport by herself. She turned to me and asked me if I was an unaccompanied minor. I answered no. If she's not an unaccompanied minor, then she can be in the airport by herself. She's lying. She can't be 16. She showed me a fake ID. Oh, really? She turned to me and asked to see my boarding pass. I gladly handed it to her. She reviewed it and said that it looked fine. She then asked to see what I showed the Karen. I handed her my driver's license. Then she also said, looked fine. Karen demanded the woman at the desk handed me over to her so she could take me to her gate and find my parents. This scared me. I knew I wasn't going anywhere with this woman, but it didn't stop me from being scared. The lady asks Karen, "Ma'am, is this girl your child?" "No." "Then I'm afraid that I cannot give her to you. I can assure you she's in good hands." "No, she's not, because she's rebellious and lying. I'm clearly more qualified to take care of her considering I have children and you don't." That did it. At this point, I could feel a panic attack coming on. The nice woman must have noticed this. She told the Karen that either she goes to her gate and leaves me alone, or security will be called. Karen huffed and puffed, saying the front desk lady didn't know her own airline policies and she will be calling 911 for child endangerment and Southwest was going to get shut down for this. The lady at the desk only nodded. After Karen was done with her rant, she walked away before security could come. Before she left, the lady asked her name so she could file a complaint for her. An obvious lie. And she told her. We'll just keep her name as Karen. The lady at the desk offered to find her gate, inform them of what happened, and made sure she didn't leave her gate to make me feel safer. I agreed, and we found out her gate was in the international terminal. Knowing this woman wanted to take me to a completely different terminal, the international terminal no less, made me even more scared. But I was assured everything was going to be alright. Her gate was informed about the situation, and they said they would make sure that she wouldn't leave the terminal once she arrived. It made me feel a lot better. I'm 19 now and still haven't grown taller. I'm in college now and I still fly by myself. I'm still a little shaken up from the whole thing, but I still fly on my own, but I make sure to carry around my ID and passport, and if anyone asked if I needed help, I'd quickly answer no and walk away. That may make me look more suspicious, but I don't care. I'd rather come across rude than have to deal with another crazy Karen. Man, this post was long, but thanks for reading all the way if you did. And that's where I think I'm going to leave today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed this latest installment of r/EntitledPeople. If you did, be sure to tell me what you think about it down in the comments. As always, this is Markee. I hope you have a good day, night's sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.